So moving on, we are in our next panel, and the focus is on museums. The question is, how can museums activate the past in our present? So encouraging better representation, seeking diversity, and diversity also of ideas when curating, and looking out for new models to challenge the status quo, departing from traditional ideas, and perhaps away from Eurocentric attitudes of interpreting history. So let's all welcome Alexandra, please, from the Guggenheim. Mohammed, thank you for being here safe. Alexandra, good to have you again on the floor.
Apinan, you go over there.
Okay.
I'm all set, thank you.
You're all set, please.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Mohammed. So, thank you.
Yes.
Apinan, Antonia, Wanda, and Shahzia. So thank you very, very much. It is an enormous honor to be here to represent the Guggenheim and to really celebrate these extraordinary 3 days with so many brilliant minds gathered from around the world. And how can museums accept, and this is where I'm going to push all of you, it's not just about bringing an object from the past and putting it side by side. I'm not interested in a one-to-one. I'm interested in how these objects from the past, or ideas, or philosophies, or positions, spirituality, if you will, are really radical agents. How can temporality be a radical agent? How can it help us deconstruct this ongoing monolith or ongoing legacies of the modern Western world? So with that, I want to introduce my distinguished colleagues, and I thank you for all the discussions we've been having over the last several months. Not in order of discussion, but Wanda Nanibush, who is the Curator of Indigenous Art at the Art Gallery of Ontario, Apinan Poshyananda, who is Artistic Director of the Bangkok Art Biennial, and is single-handedly created and forged the discourse of contemporary art from Southeast Asia on a global stage. Antonia Carver, who many of you in the region know well, is the director of the Art Jameel in Dubai, and has been active in the region as a scholar and curator for many, many years. And my dear friend Shahzia Sikander, who is a Pakistani-born artist who lives and works in New York. And I'd like to turn to you. You have been a curator, I would also call a kind of activist curator, forging this not only art history, but art practice, curatorial practice, strongly in the region, but always in a global context. And you are curating primarily from Thailand and with Thai artists. The first show that I saw of yours that was, imprinted in all of our minds is Traditions, Tensions, that was presented at the Asia Society in New York and traveled around Asia, actually, in 96.
96, yeah.
So just in that title, Traditions, Tensions, you are implying a lot. So a lot of the artists you're working with in the Thai context are specifically referring to Buddhist ideas or Buddhist practices or Buddhist motifs. How have you curated that without falling into the problem or the trap of Orientalism?
Yeah, in the 90s and still now, I think we're still struggling with the straitjacketing and the pigeonholing of what I call pale white, stiff upper lip discourse of curatorship. So in that way,
I'm guilty.
The challenge that we propose is that, like what Wanda said, the chronology of art from another region altogether must be presented to the audience of New York in case of Traditions, Tensions. And the reaction was quite negative, to begin with, because they couldn't understand, they couldn't accept, why these artists are showing in New York. And these are the names that I think they're world renowned now, like Nalini Malini, Monten Budma, Arya Rajamanasuk. These are the names that were totally unknown. Names became problematic because even pronouncing them or writing about them, let alone trying to understand what's their faith and what's their belief. But these artists refer to traditions, meaning that they look back to the museums. And we come back to the museums again, where it's a temple whereby is produced through Eurocentric discourse. For example, in Thailand, we have to go through Josedes and Jomboseye, the way they put the discourse in the Southeast Asian ancient art. But these artists refer and pick up ideas. They have, like you said, the ability to skip, borrow, do anything to it. And a lot of them work in the storage of museums. This is the most exciting place, the storage of museums, not outside, where the museums are placed, the objects are placed in vitrines, in pedestals, and they're totally out of context. You don't see it in the way that the sacred images are seen in the original context. So in this way, the artists were able to, freely express themselves. But I think we feel that we have to treat them as artists, not particularly artists from a particular, country. So in this way, we have to also present them that these are the names of the artists that should be recognized in contemporary curatorship, especially in education, because artistry in contemporary art in Africa, Asia, or elsewhere was very much lacking. So in this way, like chronology, we have to also, clean out and really interject, whereby we have to study the history of these artists. And I give credit, in the 90s to Australians, to Japanese who were, in the forefront of trying to create this discourse and spaces. Because in the 90s, as you see, that many biennales were appearing, whether in Japan, in Australia, and these became new arenas whereby the artists could have space of their own to represent their own ideas, their own contextuality. And hence, it's like a slow process. But I think we've come far, and it's a very exciting time.
I mean, we've been talking about colonialism, but to put things in perspective, it was colonialism that saved the pyramids, that decoded the hieroglyphs. It was the colonialism that excavated the Roman ruins in Baalbek. When everything happened in Mosul and Palmyra, I was happy that the British Museum actually housed so many parts of this heritage. So I just want to ask any of the panelists, where do we place this? I mean, it's not that colonialism was bad all the time. Where do we place the positive part that colonialism played in this?
That is a wonderful question, and I think that's a question that we might want to workshop later, because this panel is not specifically on colonialism. And I don't think any one of us is like an academic expert. Did anyone want to answer that? I just feel that I'd like to keep to the question of how can we activate the past in our museums. And what you're saying is our museums in the West, which have these objects, some of them, not all of them, I argued with Wanda about this too, some, not all, maybe the majority, but not all, did come in through colonial acquisition, shall we say, and have been there as a basis of study for some good. We have to admit it's for some good, but at a cost. I think it's a fantastic thing to workshop. We will take it up in our workshop this afternoon. How about that, Wanda? Sure. But is there any question that is specifically about museum practice and the past?
I just would like to put you guys in peace again, because you are fighting these ladies.
Oh, we aren't.
Nice. We love each other. I'm joking.
We love each other.
It's in jest. Alexandra was mentioning at the beginning that this wonderful artist in Mecca yesterday was proposing that artists do VR, the theme is also about technology and how it can bring the both. And Wanda was having this wonderful sentence about the difference between artists and historians, and that artists are better researchers. And of course, we have an artist here who has been witnessing that. Isn't that the place where VR can link all this and get things out, bring them back to context, and satisfy your desire to bring, politics and spirituality together? That's a question.
I'm actually going to turn that question to Apinan because he's actually had a lot of experience working with artists in VR, and you know the medium. And do you think it can solve this
Yeah, I think
issue?
I think there are positive sides to VR, as well as positive and negative side of acquiring artworks during colonization. Because many objects of artworks, so-called artworks in the museums, are not just about authenticity, nor is it about beauty, but it also reminds people of how it got there. You know, the hurt, the looting, the pillaging. So a lot of the times museums don't address this. I mean, this gentleman asked us about the British Museum acquiring the art. That's fantastic. That's really good. But also we have to consider, when is the British Museum going to give back some of the objects that they've kindly protected over the centuries? You know, why call Elgin marble, for goodness sake? It's Greek marble. You know, something like that should be a gesture, and this is when VR comes in. You know, after Brexit, you know, going to be a lot of empty rooms. We do VR for the Elgin marbles and the Parthenon, and give back these objects to the original country.
I love that. It's like give them the